Hello again, YouTube. Today we're talking about the watch on my wrist, the DOXA SUB 300 Aqua US Divers Edition in carbon. Now we're about to launch into a detailed review on the wrist, but before we do, I just want to talk about some top-line things that make this watch so exciting. The first thing that's really exciting about it is that it is not sold out. Now, we have been part of the misinformation that this watch sold out some time ago. We believed it was, we were told it was. However, there appear to be some models remaining. So that's very good news to start off with, as the watch is selling above retail on Chrono24 as it is. Now, some top line things. The Aqua logo on the dial in a beautiful sort of bumblebee yellow refers to a company co-founded by Jacques Cousteau in 1943. Now, what does that have to do with dive watches? It has everything to do with dive watches. In fact, this is the birth of the dive watch because the Aqua apparatus allowed scuba divers, there wasn't even scuba at that point, it allowed divers to go much deeper than they'd ever gone before, requiring that their watches go with them and not shatter at pressure. So, dive watch boom after the Aqua was created, and DOXA were right there. In the 60s in particular, there was a boom of recreational dive watching, and Rolex and DOXA bonded together to form or to work on a project to create a helium release valve, HRV, which allows helium to escape from the watch that builds up as you go deeper and deeper into the ocean. This watch, though, doesn't really have anything historical or nostalgic about the way it looks. It is a badass black watch, which we've talked about a lot over the last year. It has a carbon dial. It has this really high contrast color scheme of the bumblebee yellow and black. It is a beautiful thing to have on the wrist. One thing that we will get into the review, but I'm going to steal the thunder of the reviewer. It's probably going to be me anyway. But this watch weighs 87 grams. Now, the average watch might weigh around 150, 160 for a standard steel sports watch, but that goes right up to 220 for a solid gold watch. Say, like I said, in a Speedmaster we recently reviewed is 218 grams. So we're really talking about a featherlight experience on the wrist. Has a beautiful integrated rubber bracelet, one of the best rubber bracelets on the market, and a deployant. So it's fairly dressy despite being stealthy and sporty. I have said a lot, it was meant to be a short intro, but I just wanted to jump in and say, momentarily available, may not be for very long after this is published because it's only a handful left, but very good news for the short term. Jump on it if you're interested, and here is the watch in detail.
Does DOXA manufacture the most wearable diver in the world? Was the DOXA SUB 300 Carbon Aqua US Divers Limited Edition robbed at the 2020 GPHG Awards for the Divers Prize? The answer to both of those questions, at least in my opinion, is yes. DOXA has manufactured beloved divers' watches for decades, maintaining their distinct Sub 300 aesthetic largely unchanged since its release in 1967. The DOXA SUB 300 Carbon Aqua US Divers Limited Edition was a welcome departure from what we typically see from the brand, not in its case profile, but its material. The DOXA SUB 300 Carbon Aqua US Divers Limited Edition is the first to utilize a forged carbon case, incredibly robust and resistant to surface scratching. The inner chamber of the case is made of titanium. Why? In the super unlikely event you manage to crack the robust forged carbon, the inner titanium chamber serves as an added layer of protection for the movement. But to be clear, you shouldn't feel too concerned, unless your name is Bruce Banner. Like other Sub 300 cases, the watch is 42mm in diameter, 13.4mm thick, yet remains very compact with a lug-to-lug measurement of 45mm across the wrist. We all too often speak about how a watch plays with the light, and how the manner in which it does so elevates its design. This is usually achieved with contrasting finishes to the surface of a metal, but here it's simply the innate nature of the material that does so. As you rotate the watch so that your eye meets the dial, you can see the carbon texture brighten in certain spots, while others remain darker. It is very intriguing to the eye, and is an element that will ensure the timepiece does not become boring or flat over time. This also applies to the dial of the watch, fabricated in carbon just like its case. The dial and the bubble sapphire crystal that protects it are quite small, something you would think would hinder legibility, but this is not the case. Interestingly, there's a segment of carbon between the crystal and bezel that serves as the outer minute track, as well as the timing scale, so to an extent the dial information extends past the crystal of the watch. Between 7 and 8 o'clock is the famed Aqua US Divers emblem, printed in yellow to match the color accents of the bezel's depth scale, and engraved DOXA fish logo inset within the crown. The minute's hand is also rendered in yellow, making it very legible against the dial. The shorter hour hand, as well as the central seconds hand, are finished in a contrasting white color that matches the tone of the indices and printed hashes on the dial. Both the yellow and white are very easy to read against the carbon backdrop, something DOXA has clearly ensured in its design as a professional dive watch. And don't worry, in darker settings, there's ample blue superluminova to brighten up the hands and hour indices. The rubber strap on the DOXA Sub 300 Carbon, like other DOXA Sub 300 models, is incredibly comfortable and robust. Having sized my own DOXA Sub 300 Carbon, I know firsthand how much effort it can take to deliver a clean cut to the strap as you size it to your wrist. While you may wish it was a tad easier to do, once sized, you're grateful that it's such a tough rubber composite. It shows just how durable the strap will be over time, the super comfortable composite very unlikely to scratch or tear. The folding clasp boasts a neat feature for both divers or those who nitpick to find a perfect fit. There are two sets of triggers, one to unlock the folding clasp, and the other to unlock the dive extension within it. While depressing the dive extension triggers, you can begin to extend the clasp in notches to lengthen the circumference of the strap, a handy tool to fine-tune the fit to the millimeter or get it around your wetsuit. Inside the watch is the venerated ETA 2824 caliber, used throughout orological history as a reliable movement in professional tool watches. The cost chronometer certified movement has a power reserve of 38 hours, but as an automatic watch, it will continue to keep time so long as you're wearing it. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe to the Time+Tide channel for more videos.